ask?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So how many have played Gambit before? Just out of curiosity. One, two, couple. Okay, so we're going to teach you how to play it a little bit later on, but first I want to tell you how I came up with the game. I've got a granddaughter who's about your age, and I wanted to have a game with her that would teach her how to count, how to achieve a little bit of strategy, but we didn't want to use any of the games that we had in the house because we were tired of them. Okay? So I wanted to come up with something new, and I wanted to make something that I could actually make at home that would actually keep people entertained for more than one game, right? Something that is easily made with materials you might have around the house, right? So in this case, we're using solid wood, because you can buy wood anywhere. We use marbles and dice, because you can buy those anywhere as well, right? So how do you, let me ask you a question. Who thinks it's more, if you had a choice between making something really complicated or really simple, which do you think is harder to do? Who thinks it's harder to come up with something complicated? Okay. How many think it's harder to come up with something simple? You know what the problem is with coming up with something simple? Somebody else has probably done it already, right? So you want to make it simple so that everybody can enjoy it and everybody can learn how to play it. But you don't want to make it so complicated that you have to have somebody else make it for you, and it doesn't take you a long time to learn, right? Let's see, how many people in the class know how to play backgammon?
What's that?
Backgammon? Probably on one of the boards back there, actually. It's a game with a bunch of triangles on it. Too many pieces, lots and lots of pieces. And it takes a long time to learn how to play. How many people know how to play checkers? More people, okay? Checkers? How about chess? Chess. With
Chess.
There we go. All right. So how long did it take you to learn how to play chess? 1 day.
1 day?
45 minutes.
All right. How long did it take you to learn how to play? How long did it take you to learn how to play well, where you could beat the other person almost every time?
4 days.
2 days.
You don't know what chess is? That is the board right on top of that one right there, right behind you. That's the chess board. You can also use it to play checkers.
I know how to play chess.
So the idea behind this game is that we can teach you how to play it in under 5 minutes, sometimes under 1 minute. And when I sent this away, after I invented it, I sent it away to a place called Invention. Has anybody heard of that before?
No.
Okay. What they do is they take your invention and they put it through a process, and they see what it's useful for, what the market is, a whole bunch of other different things, okay? And one of the things that Gambit's really good at is teaching you how to count, okay? Up to 12, but you get to figure out what the patterns are almost immediately, right? So 2 and 4, 6 and 5, whatever the case may be. So that's something that they identified as something that teaches kids how to count, a little bit of strategy, a little bit of forward thinking, right? And it's also useful at the other end of the age spectrum as well for older people, because it gives them what they call fine motor control, and it keeps their brains functioning well. So we not only have these in schools, and you have several of them here, they're also in old age homes. Because it's something that you could go to your grandparents and play and be on equal standing with them, right? There's no special skill required. It just depends on how you think. It depends on how aggressive you are, right? And that's kind of important with the game, is that you're not at a disadvantage no matter who you're playing against, right? Now, the hands that have played it before, let me see them again. 1, 2, there's about 4 of them, right? Did you know that each board has a bunch of different ways you can play it?
Yeah.
How many different ways?
All I know is 5.
5 different ways?
Yeah.
What are those? So you have the 6 from one end to the other.
There's very skinny.
Hmm?
There's one that's skinny, one that's a bit fatter.
Okay, so this board fits right in the middle of that board. So on the 4 wide,
So it's a bulldog.
you can play it on here as well, right? So you can go 6 wide here, you can go 4 wide that goes down the middle, where the most complicated one is where you go 2 rows of 4 and you go right down the middle. So if you have a game of chess, after you finish a game of chess, what's the only thing you can do? Have another game of chess, right? But with this board, you can actually bump up the difficulty. Or you can have a really quick game if you just go 4 down the middle, right? That'll only take you about 10 minutes. So one of the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure that everything I was using was renewable, and that's why I use what they call beetle kill pine, okay? Does anybody know what that means?
Nope.
It's where a tree was killed by a bug.
What?
Beetle kill pine. So it's a pine tree, they got killed off by a bug. Right?
Yes.
And a lot of
Yeah.
times you can't use that wood for very much else. You can't use it for building, you can't use it for furniture, it has no real structural support, right?
But
So
it's organic?
this one, and that one, those are all made out of beetle kill pine, okay? This one is made out of maple. Anybody wanna guess what that used to be? Well, yeah, initially, it used to be a table, right? So anytime I wanna use a fancier wood, I don't go out and buy new wood, I go out and buy broken furniture, right? So that one's made out of broken furniture, this one's made out of broken furniture, and this one's a piece of fence board that I had left over, right? So I can make a gambit board out of pretty much anything. And you notice that not all the boards are the same length, right? So if it's a little bit shorter, it doesn't matter. I just cut it a little bit shorter, or I remove a row of divots, and the game plays exactly the same. So I'm not wasting any wood. Same way, when I'm cutting strips down, sometimes I can't get a 6 wide. I can only get a 4 wide, right? So that piece of wood doesn't go to waste either.
I'm just gonna write some notes beside you there.
Okay. Now, another thing that I really enjoy about the game is that not only can you play it different ways, the strategy behind it actually lends itself to other variations. And when I went down to what was called the Enterprise Competition 2020, it got canceled because of COVID, so we're kind of pushed off until 2021. When I showed them this product, they wanted to see a couple of other products, right? So because the game is fairly simple to come up with, it didn't take me very long to come up with a travel version of it, right? So this one got the snap here and 2 hinges there, and it folds out, and there you go, there's the board, and all the marbles and the dice are right inside, right? So it's pretty easy to come up with that. This is the prototype, and it's not in production yet, and this is one of the reasons why. I actually need a machine. The reason why I was in the competition, I needed a machine that can actually do all the cutting all on its own.
I have
So,
a Dremel
let's
thing
close that one
before
up.
I do that.
What's that?
A Dremel.
Which?
A Dremel.
A Dremel. I don't know what that is.
You can buy that from the hardware.
Hmm?
You can buy that from the hardware, I think.
Oh, it's a tool. Okay, fair enough. Now, one of the other things that they wanted to see, and this was the same thing for Dragon's Den when I went to that audition, is they wanted to see a 4-player game. So would you like to see a 4-player game?
Yeah.
That is what a 4-player gambit looks like. So you got 2 boards that intersect each other, but I took the divots out of the middle so it didn't get too congested. And the idea is, again, there's more than one way to play this. You can go from one end to the other, or you can put 2 here, here, and here if you're starting here, or you can put any of them in any end zone, and as soon as that happens, the game's over, right? So it's important for me that the game has more than one purpose, right? And that it's still fairly easy to learn. So that's pretty much the story behind it and where it's at right now. When Enterprise starts up again, if we happen to get the first prize or second prize, then we'll be able to buy some machinery and start drilling them out automatically. But right now, every board you see up here and every board you've seen out there, there's over 1,000 of them out there right now. I drilled by hand.
Whoa.
Any idea how long that takes me to drill?
Oh.
I'll take a couple of guesses here.
An hour?
An hour? Here?
3 hours.
3 hours in the back. I wish I could do it in 5 minutes. The first one took me a day. In fact, that one there took me about 2 days. But now, because there's, when you're using tools, there's something called a jig that you can set up, makes your work a little bit easier. It makes the measurements automatic. I can do that in 16 minutes now. So I can make roughly 4 an hour, and the materials are inexpensive enough that I can get quite a bit of a stockpile going, like for Christmas, and I don't have to spend a whole lot of money. So if you're going to sell something for a profit, how many times more should you plan on making above and beyond what you spent to make it in power and materials and all that kind of stuff? Right? If it costs you $10 to make something, how much do you have to charge? You gotta spill.
Oh, spill. Figured it out.
Huh?
So let's think about that. So if you've invented something and you wanna sell it, and it costs you $10 to make it, you wanna make money, right? So how much are you gonna charge for your invention? Okay,
Even more.
even more, so how much would you like more?
20 more.
20 more, so then 10 plus 20 equals?
30.
Right, so you would charge $30, and then you would make your $20, right? Assuming there's no tax and all that. West, no,
I would probably do 12.
$12, okay, so then 10 plus 12 is?
22.
22, so you would charge then $22.
And then like plus 2.
Exactly. Alex, 30? 40? What did you say, sorry? 30. And Emily? 100. So if you are if it cost you $10, how much extra would you charge? 110.
That's a
So,
120.
that's actually a bit of a trick, right? When you invent something, how much is somebody else going to spend on what you made for them? And what's the minimum amount that you want to make on it? Well, for people who are making things from scratch, there's always the possibility that you're going to completely destroy the first one. Either, let's say you're making a dress, let's say you rip the fabric, or in one of these, maybe the board splits in half. Or maybe you're growing a garden, right, and half of the things don't grow. So if you aren't charging at least enough on top to cover your loss on the other one, then you're not going to be making any money, right? So if you're making something for 10, if it costs you 10, the absolute minimum you should be charging is 20. And that way, if the first one gets wrecked, you're still making enough off of the second one to cover what you put up, right? That makes sense for everybody?
Yeah.
All right, so maybe that's something that you keep in mind when you're inventing this game. Maybe you're going to sell it, right? So I think what I'll do now, I'll just take some questions, and we got one down here.
Why do you make all the holes the same thickness?
I use a drill press and a bunch of clamps, right? So the board goes on there like that, and I've got measurements lined up on what I call the jig, right? And all of these are an inch apart, and they're an inch apart that way too, right? So I pull down and I make one hole there, and then I have to undo the clamp and move it over the right amount, and then reclamp it, and then pull it down again, right? So when I'm producing these a lot, I get into a rhythm that I can do about 4 holes in there.
Why is that like that?
The only difference between any of these is the stain. They all look like this before, well, not all of them, this one didn't. But that one looked like this before the stain. Right? So depending on what color you want, you just go down to Home Depot and you find the right color. And I'm gonna start selling them like this as well, right? So that they're not colored ahead of time. And you can color it however you want. You can color it like a rainbow, you can do all sorts of drawings on it, whatever, right? And then that way it would actually be your board. Yeah.
Because you could buy the board and then buy the paint and then paint it and then sell it for more.
Yep, you got it. Hey there.
How much is it?
How much are these?
Yeah.
They go for $40 in the pine, and then the more expensive woods, they go for $70. We were talking about markup before. This one cost me about $6, right? And these ones, it depends on what I have to pay for the furniture to make them out of, right? So sometimes I have to spend $100 on a table and I'll get 6 boards out of it, so that's $16 per board. Sometimes people just give me a piece of furniture and they say, hey, turn this into a Gamma board and you can keep the leftover wood. Perfect, I'll do that too. Any other questions? Down here. Your hand was up. No? Okay, here.
What type of furniture do you make them out of?
I can make them out of bookshelves, or tables, or desks. I've turned them out of dressers. This one here, this one was a dresser. You can see where the other boards were glued together to make the drawer, right? What else did I use? anything that's flat, that's got that big a surface on it, I can turn into a gambler board. Yep.
Can you make it out of bricks?
You can make it out of whatever you wanted to, as long as you had a drill press that did it. You can make it out of plastic, you can make it out of cardboard, you can make it out of glass, right? So one of the things about the game, because it's scalable, I can shrink it down to a board that's this size, I can make it as big as I want it, and then you can use whatever you want for the moving pieces, right? You can go as fancy as you want. But if you just want to go with the marbles and you lose a marble, well, you can buy marbles anywhere, right? So you don't have to throw the game out. How many people have had to throw out a game because you lost too many pieces? Right? That happens. So it's a spinner on life break, game shot, unless you're going to use dice, right? So you have to go out and buy something else. But this way, with what we've got here, it's never going to get thrown away. You can always go out and buy replacement parts for it. And you know, my hope is that these get passed down to the parents, the kids beyond, right here.
Is the one that's travel, is it made out of a jewelry box?
No, that was made out of a table. Yeah. So that table, I got 4 6 wides like this and 4 wides like that. Anybody else? Any other questions? Who wants to learn how to play? All right. Now we've got an expert down here, right? Pick somebody to play with, and we're going to use the two of you. Okay. Maybe how are we going to do this? Are they allowed to gather around?
That's a good question, because I have to take out a few things because of COVID. And my table is a mess. Okay, so we will gather around then. I'm wondering, Odin and Weston, can the two boys use your desks, like together? That's okay. And then everybody else can kind of gather around. So we'll figure that one out. Okay, so we'll get the game board there. Maybe Weston and Odin can sit or stand up for a minute. And then now we need one child on one end and the other child on the other end, right?
Yep.
Maybe you can play sides, is that okay? Does that work? Excuse me. Okay, Andrew, take Weston's chair. Oh, and we're gonna leave this chair here for Gavin. And we're gonna take this out there. Or, do you want me to grab one of my boards?
No, it's okay. Maybe you just want to do.
Oh,
Pick one.
okay.
Which one do you want?
Doesn't matter, pick
Doesn't
any
matter?
one. Maybe Gavin, you wanna show me where that one? So Gavin.
Your class.
So, you're starting on this side and Gavin. Oh, jeez. Andrew, sorry, you're starting on this
You're
side.
sweet, oh, yeah.
My dad needs more coffee.
All right, you go and put those.
Okay, now, come around to the back. Now, if you're in the very front and you're blocking somebody, you might want to pop down on your knees. So Jess can pop down on your knees and Roman, there we go. And now, Jordan can stand behind and see. Can you see okay?
All right.
Now, how are we doing here? Good, can you see okay? Maybe Odin, can you pop down on your knees, honey? That's good. Now, Odin, come on over here. You know, Odin, let's sit on Katie's desk. There we go. Can we see everybody? Alex, can you see, honey? Reach, okay, wow, look at those cool marbles.
All right, guys. So the idea of the game is to get all your marbles from your end to the other end. Whether they're in the other end or in your end, they're safe. They can't be hit, right? But as you're moving down the line here, right, according to whatever count, if you land right on top of the other person's marble, then it goes back to the beginning. Okay.
So you bump that person.
Now, this configuration is what we call classic, is the way I came up with it initially, right? Now, if you wanted to make a very quick game, then you play the 4, you ignore the outside, kind of like bowling, and then you just run those right down the middle. Or, if you want the more complicated game, and this one takes about half an hour, then you do the 4, but you double up, okay? So again, every time you play the game differently, you're going to wind up with different strategies and whatnot, right? And one thing that's kind of important for Gambit this year, it's really easy to clean. It's COVID friendly, right? You can wash the marbles; they're not going to dissolve. You can take pledge to to the wood and clean it off, so after every use, you can refresh it, you don't have to worry about anything happening, right? So, that was something that was brought to my attention there fairly
Or no,
recently.
or gambit boards you play.
So, both of you are gonna roll one dice, and the highest one goes first. So you're gonna go first, now you're gonna roll both of your dice. Alright, now, you can use a 2 and a 6, right? So you've got a combination of 8, you know that you've got 8, but you can go a 6 and a 2. And you can either go straight down, or you can bounce off the side. So let's say you wanted to move this one, but you wanted to change which alley it was in. And then you can go 1, 2, bounce off the side, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you change from here to here, right? Or you can just run down the aisle with them, or you can move one of them 2 and another one 6, right? So you got a bunch of different options, and that's where the strategy comes in. Because sometimes, as you're coming down and you're coming into where his pieces are, sometimes you're gonna wanna hit him and knock him back to the beginning, but sometimes you're not. Because if you knock him back to the beginning and that fills up all of the spaces, then you don't have anywhere for your guy to go, right? So you have to think ahead of time what works best for you. So you can move your 2 and your 6. There you go. Okay, your turn. Now, because there's no artwork and there's no language, how many people think that they could teach this game to somebody who didn't speak the same language as them? Right? So you can literally play this game anywhere in the world with anybody you came across, and you can sit down and have one-on-one time impressed with that person. Right? And that is what I really enjoyed about the game most of all. There you go.
Simple. Very simple.
Now you can use the other marbles too, right? don't
Yeah,
have
you
to
can
just
move as
use-
many as you want at the same time.
8. 7.
Okay, for that one, once you start moving in a direction, you have to stay in that direction, right? So we'll go there, right? If you wanted to go 3 the other way, you could go 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, right? But once you start in a direction, you have to stay with it.
Okay, going straight, gotta go straight. If you're going at an angle, you can finish off. Okay.
Now, if I land on top of yours, what happens?
It goes back to the start.
Goes back to the beginning. What happens if I land on one of mine? Same thing, right? Sometimes the only move that you have available is going to knock yourself back to the beginning. It doesn't happen very often, we call it a suicide, but sometimes that's what happens, right? So, that was one of the things as we're going through testing of the game, you play it as many times as fast as you can, right? To see what comes up that you didn't think about yet. And especially when I developed the 4-player game, it doesn't play like this. It's the same general strategy, but it plays completely differently. And the game actually told me how to write the rules. So I thought that was kind of cool too. I think it's his turn.
Can we do one more roll and then we let the kids try?
Yep, you bet.
Unfortunately, our school date is a shorter date.
Yeah.
We are done at 2:26.
No, I think it's my turn.
Is it?
Yeah.
One more roll.
8.
And then Andrew, you can do one more roll.
Since if you go to the end, you'll win.
Yeah, once all of your pieces are all the way to the other end, and you have to roll the right number to get it into the end, then that's who the winner is.
The number you have to pass that.
No, you just can't take the move. That was a decision that we
Then
made.
there's going
So you just stay until you roll the right number then.
You got it.
Do
Or
they
smaller.
this one, when on top of this one, when I only use like low end?
You have to land right on top.
This one lands on this one, he goes to the start.
Yep.
Wait, jump over. Yeah, can you jump over?
You can jump over and that's fine.
Oh, so
Yeah.
nothing happened.
No, in that, you're thinking like checkers, but it's not like checkers, okay.
It's not like
Checkers you can make kings and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and you can, my friend got up to that big, used all mine.
Really?
make
Alright.
kings.
Shall we play?
Alright.
Choose a partner.
If you wanna,
Should we have them? I mean, we have them at the end of the
that one takes about half an hour.
Let's go over here.
We have the giant one. We got a giant one.
These are what mine are going
Go set up and then come back.
Stay here, I'll get the diamond.
We need a dice. Oh, dice two.
No,
I only did that.
okay, well then. You don't get to do that yet.
Oh no, I got these first on the end. I'll put these down. That means you don't need them. Oh, that's a really lucky step. Wait, I need to
What do you need, marbles? Come on.
Imagine if I was right here. And it said one, two,
Okay, move up. That is the sixth one. That's not how you do it. So, you want to come up here, please. Bounce off the side. You go through the You all set?
No, I'm not. You're not doing that.
Can I just get everybody's attention just for a quick second? If you have any questions about a move, just put your hand up and I'll come over and answer them for you, okay? Perfect.
But you have to get exactly to Isaiah. Or you have to No, we will oh yeah, you just roll that first. No, we will
I can get two, then I can see. If I get this, I can put 1, 2, then I can do these guys.
You can either do
Two eyes at the same time.
Or you can just do the four